County public school system, considered one of the finest educational environments in the entire state of Alabama, has a history beginning in the latter part of the 18th century, when, as records indicate, Alabama's first public schoolhouse was built in the North Baldwin County community of Tensaw in 1799. And at that time, nearly 10 years prior to Baldwin being organized as a county, the area remained geographically expanse. Agriculture served as king, and family farms dotted every section of the county. And in this era of extremely limited highway systems, individual communities built their own respective public schoolhouses, with the Board of Education supplying teachers to provide instruction. In the early part of the 20th century, the Baldwin County public school system boasted over 80 separate school districts, each with their own individual public schoolhouse. And as time progressed, marked with improvements in transportation and engineering, numerous school districts were consolidated into nearby areas, leaving us today with very few of the original and historic public schoolhouses which distinguished Baldwin County, beginning in 1799, as the birthplace of Alabama's first public schoolhouse. This documentary, commissioned by the Honorable County Commissioners of Baldwin County and honorable members of the Baldwin County Board of Education, seeks to illuminate these few remaining and historic original public schoolhouses in an effort to pay tribute to one of the finest public school systems in Alabama. Belforest was a small farming community located on the eastern shore near Daphne when the Belforest School was built in 1896. The small one-room schoolhouse served grades 1st through 5th under the guidance of the school's first teacher, Katie Fields. In 1904, another school building and the 6th grade were added, and thereafter, as the students progressed, more grades were added. In 1906, a hurricane destroyed the Belforest School. In 1907, the new school was built with enough room for 3 classrooms. In 1916, Belforest boasted 109 students. Tragedy struck the Belforest School for a second time on December 7, 1937, when a fire destroyed the building. Luckily, Angelo Lazzari, a student, ran into the burning building and saved enough school books for classes to continue at a nearby church. The school was rebuilt and continued to serve the community of Belforest until it was closed in 1950. In 1952, the newly formed Belforest Civic League bought the school building from the state at the price of $1. Today, the rebuilt school serves as the Belforest Community Center. Many organizations conduct meetings at the old school, and the town still benefits from the facility as its grounds during community events and festivals.
The Belforest School had its beginning in 1896 when the first one-room schoolhouse was built southeast of where the present Belforest Civic Center is now located. The school had 6 grades and 1 teacher. Katie Fields was a teacher at the time. In 1904, progress hit Belforest and another building was built next to the one-room school. Belforest then had 2 teachers, Maisie Coker and Hattie Lindsay, and 6 grades was split up between the 2 teachers. Essie Fields was also a teacher here, and I have been looking up her, I have been doing research on Essie Fields, and I want to know more about her because she was my niece's grandmother, and I've been doing more research on her, and she was from Selma, Alabama. And the teachers came down and they went to school at the normal school in Daphne, and then they taught school here in Belforest to get some of their education in. Well, I started school in 1937. Was in 1st grade in that old school, and then the fire started, and we had to go across the street. They marched us across the street to Miss Myrick's house over there, and Angelo Lazzari got all the lunches and some books out. He got enough books for us to learn, and a book for the teacher, and he got all those lunches, and they said he liked to eat, so he got those. He did get the lunch, and And so then we had to go to school in the Christian church right down the road. And we went there for 2 years until they got this building built. And then we were in the 3rd grade here in this building. And that was in I think we went to Daphne in 1943. But we went to school here 6 years. And we had a curtain up there, and it had all the advertisements of all the businesses around, and they would pull that curtain down when we had a play up on the stage there. And so we had to go to school 6 years in Belforest, 3 years in Daphne, and 3 years in Fairhope to graduate. We had to go all the way around. And the school buses, the roads were not paved. The school buses would get stuck in the mud between here and Daphne, and we'd have to get a tractor, a man on a tractor, to pull us out. And we were stuck in that red clay. And it wasn't until 1939 probably when we got the new roads, the roads was paved. And so it took us 12 years to graduate, but we had to go to Belforest, to Daphne, and to Fairhope. We had to go all the way around. And so Miss Pat Patterson was our 4-H club teacher. And she came and she showed us how to make scrambled egg sandwiches. So we made 2 sandwiches, and we had a little farmhouse in a barn outside that the children had made, and the children all went out to see the farm. All of them except Lena May, Pintarelli, myself, and another girl. And Lena May got that sandwich, and she ran up and down the aisles in here, and she ate that sandwich. And when the teachers came back in and the children came back in, the sandwich was gone. And the teacher got on to us because the sandwich was gone. And we always played fox and dog in the yard when we were out at recess. And so one day I saw my dad coming down the road, so I was on my base, and I thought he was coming to pick us up. So I sailed off of my base, and when I did, Cotton Lazzari caught me. He caught me because I got off the base, and I was the fox and he was the dog. And he caught me when I sailed off of that base. And so, but my dad was going on down the road. He didn't stop to get me. So
I started here in the fall of 1936, and we lived a half mile from the school, and in those days everybody walked to school. And my first grade teacher was named Miss Jean Ewell, and she drove a 1929 Chevrolet car, you know, which back in those days they were all black. So I went into, finished the first grade and went to the second grade, and it was extremely cold weather, and there was most of the land around here was all in timber back in those days, and each one of the 2 rooms in the old school had heaters, and we'd go out, there were just tons of wood all over, and we call it the fat lighter wood here in the South like this, and it burns extremely fast, it makes a lot of heat. So it was, like I say, it was an extremely cold day, and one of my cousins and one of his friends was some of the oldest students here, and they gathered up a lot of wood, and they packed that thing full of wood, and it got the fire going, and it caught the school on fire, and it burned down. And that would have been it was extremely cold. I feel that it would have been in 1937, which you know, it would have been 1937. Or it could have been in either the last of 37 or either first part of 38, when the school burned, the original school, yeah. And my brother Angelo was one of the older ones, and they, as long as he, toward the end of his life, every time he'd see some of the older people from the community, they would pick on him because he went into the cloakroom and threw all the, he threw all the lunches and all the coats out of the cloakroom for the, you know, students, you know, and they teased him about that for the rest of his life, you know. But anyway, I started in this new school in the 4th grade in 1939, and I went here the 3 years, and one of the old families here, one of Mrs. Edna Sirmon taught me the last 2 years I was here in school, and it was a very, very odd type thing, if you could say it that way, but there was no girls in my class. The last 2 years here, the 5th and the 6th grade, had all boys. There was 6 of us boys in the grade, and I finished here in the spring of 1942. Well, they would, during the school, they would take us, the Sirmons had a syrup mill where they crushed the cane and made syrup, and they brought us, you know, field trips. There was no bus to ride to a field trip, but we'd walk to the cane mill, or they had a dipping vat just, you know, less than a half mile from here, where in the old days they dipped the cattle. They made the cattle go down in there to get rid of some of the insects that would be on the cattle, you know. So they would take us there and what have you, but it was just a different world in that era, you know. There's just no cafeterias where everybody brought their lunch, you know, and the buildings definitely didn't have air conditioning and not that much heat, you know. It was just, you know, but that was life in the 30s and in the early 40s, you know. That was life, you know. But the teachers were very good. They taught us to the best of their ability. They taught us to be Christian people and you know, good people. They were good. They gave us extremely good example. You understand? You know. Yeah.
I don't remember lots about when the 1st grade, but I know when the school burned, my sister Helen, my brother Joe, and I ran all the way home, and it's about 3/4 of a mile, and then we went through the woods and we cried all the way home because our school burned down. Now this day and time they'd probably laugh, those kids would laugh. And so we had to go to the church just up the street from here. It was the Belforest Christian Church. We went there. I was in the 2nd grade, and on Sunday before I had to go back to school on Monday, I had 10 jacks in my mouth, and my papa made me laugh, and I swallowed one of them. And my teacher's name was Miss Davison, and she held me in her lap, in her arms, and she was petting me because I had swallowed that jack, and everybody called me teacher's pet. And then when we would walk to school, my sister and I were afraid of road graders because all the roads were dirt, and they'd have to grade the roads. And the Lazzaris lived close to us, and Cotton Lazzari and them had this Shetland pony, and I was afraid of that thing. So I would throw my lunchbox across the fence and jump over there, and he accuses me of catching the lunchbox before it hit the ground. It was 6 of us who started out here at this Belforest School, 3 girls and 3 boys. We went from the 1st grade through the 6th grade. Then we had to go to Daphne Junior High School. Tell all that? Then we went to Fairhope High School. But of course we had lots and lots of other students added to us. It was not 6 anymore, it was lots of them. Do you want me to tell you my teachers? My 1st grade teacher was a Miss Long. My 2nd grade teacher was Miss Davison. My 3rd grade teacher was a Miss Lily B. Phillips. Oh, and I went to spend the weekend with Miss Phillips one weekend. This was in Little River, Alabama. And they all called me teacher's pet over that. And then we went 4th, 5th, and 6th. I said that, didn't I? 4th, 5th, and 6th. The 3 boys and 3 girls. Then it was on to Daphne. And I don't know, it was just good memories at this school. My mom and papa came here long years ago. We had to walk to school because we only lived a little piece from here. I still live on the same land that my papa owned, just right up the road, not far from here. My sister just lives across the field. The Lazzaris and all of us were born and raised, out in here. I bet it was not 200 people who lived here back then. Might not have been 100 people. It was fun here because you knew everybody. You knew it. We knew everybody, and it was lots of fun. We had fun coming to school. Had good teachers. Miss Edna Sirmon taught me in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. They lived right next door to us, too. We had fun with all of these people. All of these people, they're like family because we've known them all these years.
I started school in 1938. I have something I have to tell you. I was such a little devilish person. The school burned down the year before I started, so I started in the Christian church just down the road from here, my first year. And then by the second year, this school was open, so I came here for the next 5 years. But I said the school burned down because I was so devilish, and that probably was true. In the first grade, I would pick on everybody. I would pinch people, and one poor girl, I would chase her home from school every day. A bunch of us had to walk, all of our family, and we lived here on the north side of the school. And so we had to walk. The bus route didn't come by us, so we had to walk to school. But every day I picked on this poor girl, walking home until she got where she'd run home every day. But, okay, the things that I remember, I don't remember a lot about my first grade years here. My first grade, I do remember I got a lot of spankings. That was allowed, and I was devilish, like I said. And I was always into trouble or getting somebody else into trouble. But when I came here, I kind of calmed down quite a bit the next year in school. But I don't, like I said, the second and third grade, I don't remember. We were in the other little room behind here. We had each room had 3 grades, but the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade were in this particular room here. And I remember a lot more about it. We had classes together, all 3 grades usually. We had lots of history classes and science, and those were always the most interesting things for me. We must have been a sort of a model school here or something because, well, we always started 2 weeks or more earlier than lots of the other schools. But we had lots of visitors from other schools who'd come by and observe our classes and so forth. And what I wanted to say is the superintendent of schools was here a lot, and she was a real jolly lady, a little bit plump, and I just always enjoyed her. And she'd read stories to us and sit and tell us all kinds of tales, and she'd sit with her legs crossed and bounce back and forth, and it was just so neat to me. I just thought that was the neatest thing, but she was always so much fun to listen at, but she was here quite a bit, so we really got to know her a lot. And so I don't know what exactly all the reasons for her being here so much, other than, like I said, all the schools, or lots of the schools would come, the teachers would come and observe us, and I think they brought some students at different times also. So we kind of felt pretty important here. But I guess that's almost all I have to say, other than, well, we had 4-H club here, and I think I was the president of the 4-H club for a number of years. I said one time, I guess I was always a leader or the loud mouth or whatever, so I was chosen to do lots of things. But and I was in the plays a lot, and I like to act, so I guess that was the reason that they got me anyway. And I want to tell another little, we got to know all the kids in the neighborhood that were here, and we just, you know, worked together with everybody. And one of our students, he was a grade ahead of me, but he did a lot of carving in wood, and he carved this little heart shape, so I guess you'd say he was probably my boyfriend. So and I've had this all these years, so it's getting close to 70 years now that I've had this. So I just really, it was a pen and everything, but he carved this out of wood. And so I just always cherished this, and so I still have it. So I'll have to leave it to my children when I'm gone. We played baseball outside, and we did all sorts of things. We played all kinds of games, I guess, and we had lots of fun, and I think probably a few times I would lead a little squabble, I'm sure, but that was me. But no, we had lots and lots of fun, and the end of school we always had a big picnic and we'd mostly like sandwiches and things, and we'd all meet outside and have a picnic for most of the day on the last days of school.
I was born in Oak Grove, Florida, and we moved to Alabama when I was about a year old in 1931. And in 1935, before I was 6 years old, I started attending school at that fall session. At that time, we only had school about 6 months out of the year. So we had, you know, long vacations, summer vacations, and plenty of time to get caught up on our playing and all that. But I remember the first year when I attended first grade, we didn't have any other preschools at that time. The school, that winter, the school building caught on fire and burnt to the ground, and we were sent home, and I think we walked all the way home. The school bus delivered children to Belforest School first, and then to Daphne, and then to Fairhope, so they didn't bring the bus back to take us home, so we had to walk home. And when I was in the second grade, you know, I was noticing the little pretty girls, and I kissed one of the Kramer girls and made her cry, and I got a stern chewing out from the teacher, and she explained how we couldn't do things like that, and I didn't take school too serious, and I flunked the second grade, and I had to do that over. But through the 7 years that I attended school here, we had a lot of good times, and the teacher would make soup sometimes at noon, the best soup I ever tasted. It had, you know, homemade vegetables in it, and it was really good. And I was interested in, from the time I could, you know, as far back as I could remember, making things, you know, like little toys, and I made some tractors and trucks, and we had a little farm out back under the big oak tree, and we played farming and stuff like that. We were learning from our dads, you know, it's this farm country, and we had, you know, a lot of fun doing that. And some of the other boys and girls wanted me to make them some things, and I remember a few things like Barbara Lazzari was sort of sweet on me at one time, and I made her a heart with an arrow piercing the heart like a Cupid's arrow, and she still has it. She showed it to us today, and you know, I was surprised because I had forgot about a lot of things like that. But the teacher, you know, she let us have time to work on projects like that, you know, and bird houses and things like that we're allowed to work on, you know, whatever we wanted to build in a certain time of the day. You know, we had shop time, she called it shop time. And also another project that she allowed us to work on at times was gardening. You know, that was some part of agriculture, you know, training, and so we raised some vegetables, and I remember they were out on the north side by the fence, and the pump was pretty close by it, so we had water to water the garden when it needed it.
Raised on a farm in Loxley, Alabama, and I had 7 siblings, and we had to walk to school 2.5 miles to catch the school bus, and we would crunch the ice. We would crunch the ice on, you know, where it would be like that, crunchy, crunch, crunch, coming to school. And when we got to school, we were so cold. My feet was freezing, and this heater bus behind me, I stuck my feet up in there on many a morning and warm, thawed them out, and they would hurt thawing out. They were so cold. And I enjoyed every minute I spent at school here with all the nice kids that we were all raised up with. It was fun, even after all of that. I had a teacher that I liked real well, Miss Addie Stapleton to start with, and I loved her. And then Joyce Sirmon's mother, she was about the best teacher that we had, and Miss Ella Robinson was the first one, and she was good to us too. So we had all good teachers that I loved. And they were real good to us too. But I remember one time we weren't supposed to speak to people in school, and I think it was Miss Edner that paddled me in the hand with a ruler, and that hurt me so bad I cried.
I started in 1944, and I did 2 grades in 1 year, so that left me in 99, from 44 to 49. And some of the things I remember, of course, we had a big coal stove right here behind me, and it was always fun to get the coal and get up, sit to the side of it if we could to do our studies. It was warm. Some of the other things are the Christmas trees. Miss Edna Sirmon was my 4th, 5th, and 6th grade teacher, and we always had a huge tree, and we decorated it ourselves. Miss Edna, we made the little snow and all that. That was fun. My teacher in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd was Sudie Garrett. Of course, you don't remember quite as much about those grades, but I remember too, and playing outside, and we played a lot of hailover, and the boys were the only ones strong enough to throw the ball over the school, but we did that. Also, Miss Jewel Sirmon sometime would make taffy, and we learned how to pull taffy out in the yard. So I had a lot of experiences that way that kids don't get as much now. Let me see. I ran into the flagpole one time, about killed myself, had a big knot. I was always clumsy. We always had a maypole dance, and I can remember each class would be separated at tables, and how we would sit and do our lessons while she was teaching another class. And someone asked me one time, how'd you learn anything with 3 grades in 1 room? But we just were separated, you know, and when it came our turn, it was no problem at all. And of course, we girls,
built playhouses. And I can remember we built playhouse out by the girls' toilet. We didn't have inside bathrooms. It wasn't always the most pleasant odor, but it was the best place to build a playhouse. It was a big oak tree out there. I also remember when they built the lunchroom. I think that was in '48. I'm not sure. But anyway, I remember having the lunches and how good it was to have a good hot meal at noon and playing in the cloakroom. We were just one big family. And we really liked each other, and it was fun coming to school. Then later, after school, you know, they had square dances out here. That was a community thing. And you say Belforest School, and I just think, immediately, I think of the square dances in my school years here. We also played ball. We had ball teams later on.
Started in 1938, went 6 years. I remember most of our classmates. There were 6 or 8, I'm not sure. In first grade, one thing I remember was the guys in the big room, as we call it, 4 through 6, were playing ball, and the ball went over the fence, and they picked me up, set me over the fence to go get the ball, and snagged my britches on the barbed wire and split them from bottom to top. You know, it's amazing how little I remember about the school days here. I do remember quite a bit. I remember we had an old pump, a long-handled pump out back. It's where we got our water. We didn't have running water at all. They got that after I left. After I was out of the 6th grade, they built a cafeteria and piped water in, made restrooms. We played marbles and mumble peg with pocket knives. I don't know if you ever played mumble peg. You threw a knife and had to stick it up in the ground. And you started, and you went from your knees, flipped it from your hand, from your elbow, from different places. And the winner would drive a matchstick in the ground, and the loser had to root it out with his mouth. That was our physical education class. We had a lot of people come in and out during World War II. The time I was in the 4th and 5th grades, there were people from other states were moving in, and we had quite a few that would be here for a while and then they'd move on. And some of those families stayed and are still here in the community.
I started school here in 1939, and I think that I was one of the very first grade that started out here. And I don't really remember too much about the school back then, but I do remember a little table in the back room there where we sat and did our work. And I remember having to lay on the floor on little pallets and to take our naps in the afternoons. And we had to bring our lunches to school because we had no cafeteria at that time. And my mother always made homemade bread. And we never knew what a slice of bought bread was. So I can remember trying to trade my sandwiches for some of my friends that had bought bread or biscuits or whatever, and we would trade because I always wanted to taste some of their stuff because I was not raised on bought bread. We had to walk to school every day, and we lived here in the area, so it was about a mile that we had to walk, and it would be real cold lots of the days. And I know my father would make us wear long pants and long underwear, and I hated them at that time. and also I remember a tin the tin building out in the back next to the oak trees where we had to go to the bathroom. And we would go out there and have to use the bathroom, and it was cold. We wouldn't tarry too long. And also I can remember having to go and get the coal. We had a big pile of coal, charcoal, that was out back that we had to go put in buckets and bring it in to put it in the little heaters to keep us warm in the wintertime. And the first 3 years I was in the north side of the building, and the last 3 years I was in the south side of the building. And I feel sure that it was 1945 when I finished here, and then I went to Daphne School after that.
It was some time ago that I was at school here, and I started my first grade not in this building, but in a building that was here previous to it that burned in my second year in school. And we left here and went down to the church down the corner where we had school for until this building was built. We had this building was built in, I believe, in 1938, and we came back and went through the 6th grade here. I guess I'd have to say I enjoyed my school time here. It was very nice. It was small, but all was in school with all friends, so it was a good time. The first and through the 2nd and 3rd grade on the room next door, and this room had, I always considered this as a big room. This was it was a larger room. It had a stage in it, and it was interesting that it was built that way. We had a little platform there to whatever that we had going on, that we could have a teacher, or if there was PTA meetings here, we would they would use this room always. But it was we had, I guess, still it was it seemed like all my friends was in this school, and everybody here was known that way.
My mother taught here from 1941 through 1950 when the school closed, and then she went on to Daphne to teach there. She taught me in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. There were 6 of us that went through 1st, 3rd grade through the 6th grade all together. And then there were 4 of us that graduated from Fairhope High School that were in the 1st grade together. I'm sure you've heard many stories today about Miss Edna. She was my mother, Edna Sirmon. She was the teacher, and she was much loved here in Belforest. And we had an article in the newspaper about my aunt that used to run the cafeteria here at Belforest School. It was in the newspaper several years ago, and it tells that this school was either the first in Alabama or Baldwin County that served hot lunches to the students. I can't remember which paper it was in, and I think her picture was with it, Jewel Sirmon. Okay, I also have an obituary from one of the early teachers here, Mr. Dick Rackley, that taught here many, many years ago. I also have the short history that gives a list of the teachers that were here, and at the very last of it, this is my mother and Miss Penry, Miss Stapleton, Miss Garrett, and many others. My mother was a teacher here when I was in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and she read the story of Heidi to us. And so we did a painting, a big canvas painting of Heidi, and it has a boy on there, has a long alpine horn, has mountains in the distance, and I still have that painting. and it's being donated to the archives. But my mother was taking art classes at what I believe is the Daphne Normal School. And I think this painting was a result of one of those classes that she was taking. She writes about it in this book, in the very back of it. She tells about her art class, and she tells about teaching at Belforest School. I remember when the Belforest School burned, I wasn't in school that day because I had a stone bruise on my foot. I was in the south bedroom of the old Sirmon home that was just north of the school, so I could watch as the school burned, but I was not here. I've heard many stories about how they got out of the school and who went back and got stuff out of the school, and it was such a sad day for all of us, really sad. This is not a very good subject, but the outhouses used to be out there. The girls was way over there to the left, and the boys was back there where that pile of weeds is. And they were just open. Of course, they had tin built around it so that you couldn't see in, but it was just open. There was no doors, no way to close it in. It was just open. There was a gap about that wide under the bottom where the tin came down, a gap about that wide, and you could see people's feet walking through there because you couldn't see anything else, but you see the feet. And the boys would stand up there and they'd know who was in the bathroom.
Well, you know, we just something that we'll never forget, and just to think that we had 3 classes in each room. You know, 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6. And we used to have plays on the stage around Thanksgiving. And of course, we remember our little cloakroom where we put our lunches. And Lord, it's just amazing. And then 2 of my girlfriends and I don't know what we did. I think I know what we did. I think we drew a picture of the teacher, and she gave us a paddling, and it was right in this corner, with a ruler in her hands, and I was first. And she said, "Did that hurt?" I says, "No, ma'am." She give it to me again, honey. So the 2 friends behind me, of course, they had more sense than I did. They said, yes, it did hurt. So they didn't get any more. But we used to, Mother would carry me to school, but we'd walk home about, golly, I guess a group of us, about 5 miles from here. And we used to have fun doing that, and it's just so many good memories here that we'll never forget. And let's see, darling. And I remember quite a few of the teachers. Now, some I don't. And, you know, we're just all still real good friends, and it's just a big family affair, honey.
I went to school here for 6 years. I took and had rheumatic fever here, and I had to stay another year. And now my cousin, Aunt Sudie, I call her Aunt Sudie, Garrett, she was a teacher, and Edna, she was my aunt. That she was a teacher 3 through 6th grade here. This is a 3rd schoolhouse that's been here. And one of them burned down. The second one burnt down. There used to be square dances here in the school when I was young, and then at the latter years, I called them whenever we had them then, and worked it. Took and made some money for the school and all. I never did call it like a lot of people did. I just called it and started it, and then they followed all the way through it.
we get in a circle, we go out and say, lead out, stay home, lead out, stay home, all the way around. And then people leading out would follow me as I would start, and they would dance till it gets all the way back around where your home place is, and then you stop. And then I lead them in different things, then different calling.
I attended Belforest School from the 1st to the 6th grade. I was here when the school burned, not the first school, but the school, the second one. And remember walking home, crying all the way home because our school burned. Of course, a lot of them was glad, you know, but we live about 4 miles from here, and remember walking home, and then we rode the school bus, of course, and got off. But I always went home with my girlfriend that lived across the river, the Blacks, Margaret Black, and we would walk across Fish River and up the sandy hill over to the Blacks' home. Spend the night a lot of times, or she spent the night with me. My dad was a farmer, and we lived on my grandmother's place, was raised there. And then in the 7th grade, we went to Lake City, Florida, because he was in construction work, and went down there to build a military base down there, and came back. And of course it was in the about halfway through the 9th grade when I came back to Daphne. And we had some good times out here. Of course, we had some tough times, of course. And but there was 6 girls and 1 boy, so we had to be boys with the farm, and wasn't too bad. Of course, we knew what it was to work because we had to, but we enjoyed it. Went swimming in Fish River practically every Sunday afternoon if we could get away with it. We would be down in Fish River swimming. Of course, that swimming hole now is just, I think you can wade across it. But Miss Edna Sirmon, Miss Addie Stapleton, and was our teachers at the time. And I remember getting in trouble and getting my hand spanked. I think we was playing mumbledy peg with a knife. Got an argument over who was going to use it next or something, and got corrected about it. But I didn't get in too much trouble because I knew better. Because I had to deal with my dad when I got home. The Lazzaris always brought their Shetland pony here, and kids would try to ride him. Of course, he would balk, and he would bite you. He'd reach back and bite you. If he didn't know, if it was one of his kids, he knew who it was, and he would go, but he would not go a step if you got on him to try to ride him, if he didn't know who you was. He'd reach back and he would nip you. So we had a lot of fun with him, and but of course we were tomboys anyway, so we spent a lot of time climbing trees, going to Fish River, and all sorts of things like that. But we had a good time at school. We surely did. One of the most of the things that I remember is getting cold for the heaters, also playing out, going to the outdoor toilet, and playing in that big oak tree that's back there right now and swinging. But that was about our entertainment around here. In recess, we would all go out to the old oak tree, well, there was more than one oak tree out there, and play mumbledy peg or marbles or baseball, you know, whatever we could do to kill the time. So, but it was nice. It was nice. We had some good times. And we used to make homemade ice cream on over the weekend, and had a lot of kids come down and play ball at our house, eat ice cream, and then go swimming in the river.
And it was just like sandlot ball, you know. We bat the ball, and we get out there in the wintertime. Of course, we had to pull our shoes off, you know. We don't want to wear them out, so we ruin them. So we get out there and pull our shoes off and play ball anytime we were out. I remember a funny part, a friend of mine, we get up on that stage up there and had a chair up there that didn't have a seat in it, and he would get down in that chair, and that was the funnest thing in the world, watching him get out of it, because he was too big to go in it, but he had to get out. Now, I laughed. We had a time with that. I remember he come running across the yard, get in the tool house, get in the tool house. He didn't call it schoolhouse, he called it tool house. I will remember that.
I started school in 1942. My teacher was Miss Addie Stapleton. And she said if anybody had a pet, we could take them to school. So I had a pet chicken, a Rhode Island Red is what my mama raised. And her name was Penny. I brought her to school in a cage, and everybody just had fun looking at it. At recess, we were all outside playing. When we came in, I was running through the room, and I got a spanking on my hand with a ruler. Then when I got in the like 5th and 6th grade, my school teacher was Miss Edna Sirmon, and I learned a lot from her. She was a very good person and teacher, as the other teachers. Maybe at the end of school, we would have a big meal on the grounds, and my mama would make jelly rolls. They would be like 2 feet long. She would make 2 or 3, and that was a hit every year, so she made those every year. And in the 6th grade, I was like more of a tomboy, and the boys would be playing mumble peg with a little pocket knife, and I would be out there playing with them. During recess, we would always run around, and there would be a pile of the coal ashes that we would empty from these coal burning heaters, and I fell on that and just hurt my knee very bad, and I still have scars from it. It wasn't funny at the time, but thinking back, I was always running and hurting myself, so that's a funny story to me.
I attended school here at Belforest. I started in 1936 and went through the 6th grade here, and from here to Daphne through the 9th grade, then Fairhope through the 12th. I remember, I thought school was not really necessary. Mama used to drop me off. We had a little store up on the corner, and Mama would drop me off as she was going up to the store, and I would throw a fit to go with her, because I felt like I had all the education I needed. But I enjoyed my time here, and this building, I remember more about this building than I do the one that burned. I was started in it, and I think I was in the 2nd grade when the other building burned. But after that building burned, and I missed the big fire. I was sick. I had tonsillitis the day that the big old school burned, and I guess it's a good thing. They probably would have said I said it. We went to school for about a year and a half in a church right down the road. And back, and when they finished this building in '39, that's when we started in this building. But it was, we had, you see water fountains on the wall now. Those were put in years after, they were a long time after I left. We had outdoor toilets out on the backside. No water, we had a water bucket and you had your own cup, you kept it in the cloakroom. And if you had to go to the restroom, you went outside it was an outside privy. It was not a pleasant place to be. But all the kids that was here, I remember, we had no organized sports. We'd play mumbly pig, shoot marbles, dodgeball, just silly little games. But it was, I think it was, we got a pretty good education here. I know that most of the people that went to school here with me, there's several of them that have made a good living and got, I don't know how much money they got, that doesn't matter. They made a good living and they're happy in their retirement if they're retired. Most folks in my class still work, however part-time. But we enjoyed this old school, and after everybody, after they moved, consolidated with Daphne, we used it as a community center. Used to have square dances. We had square dances out here for years, and used to have Thanksgiving lunch out here. The whole community would have come together, not on Thanksgiving Day, but close to it. It's been used as a community center, and they're using it now as a church till they can get them a church built. But it's really served its purpose, and that's the reason it's in such good shape as it is. There used to be another oak tree just to the east. No, that's to be to the north of that tree, but Frederick got it. And that old tree, we used to try to climb it. I never was much of a climber. I'd get skinned up and quit. But that tree's been there for as long as I can remember. It was there whenever the old school was here. And it's of course still there, and I guess it'll be there until maybe a storm might get it, but hope not. Even the grounds back to the southwest side of where the fire department is, at one time we had a softball field out there with lights and everything. That was after the school was closed, but it was a community field. We had I think it's supposed to have been over 40 to be on the team, and we had some folks. Of course, we had a younger team too, but it started out as an old man's team. We had a lot. This has been a drawing card, kind of held the community together, I think. Miss Edna Sirmon taught 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and a lady who is still living, by the way, Miss Jean Ewell, was the 1st grade teacher that I went to in the old school. And I don't remember much about her, but she still lives in Daphne on Belrose Avenue. But Miss Edna, if she caught you doing something wrong, she would take that Coca-Cola ruler, bend your hand back, and smack you. You better straighten up. Which they'd throw a teacher in jail now for doing something like that. But there wasn't a lick that we got that wasn't deserved. We did it for every one we got. We ought to have had 10.
I was born here in Belforest, and I started school here. I lived about a quarter of a mile from here, and we had to walk to school every day. And Daddy would come get us and bring us when it was raining or whatever, but we had to walk every day. And I was here through the 6th grade, and the school burned when I was in the 6th grade. And the teacher told the older girls to take all the little children across the road to the house that was there, and keep them away from not to let any of them come back. But one little girl was determined to come back to get her coat, but I had to hold her back and keep her over there. But we had to finish the school year up at the church after that. Oh, and after I was out of high school, I was a substitute teacher here. When one of the teachers was sick, I would come and teach school. Well, the bathrooms were out in the corner of the yard, and there was 2 big oak trees in front of the bathrooms where the girls were, and then the boys' bathroom was over on the other side, and there was a tree there too. But so we had to go outside to go to the bathroom, and we had our water. We had an old pump that they had to pump by hand. We had a bucket and a dipper for the water. So, and we had to bring our lunches because there was no cafeteria.
Started to school here when I was 7 years old. I believe it was in 1935. This little old school was still here, and I believe Miss Williams or Williamson was the first, second, third grade teacher. And I went to school about 2 years before the school burned down. And of course, that was a big thing because we all had to go out to the neighbor across the street and stay until everything. But the school did burn down. And then after that, we went to school in the church, little Christian church down the street. I can't remember how long we went there, but we went about a year or two. And they built this building here, and we came back to school here. And there's so many things that happen. It's hard to just pinpoint one. I've been talking to all the classmates today, and we've been discussing all those good times. But I don't, I can't recall any specific thing that that stands out more than the others. I'm trying to think who was my classmates. Helen, Pintarelli, Authur, Lazzari, and there was 3 classes in each room, so it's hard for me to remember each and every child that was in there. But I graduated from here, and then I went to Daphne, junior high. But we really had a lot of good fun playing out under the oak tree, and all the boys chasing the girls around and having such a wonderful time. This today has been the most wonderful experience I've had in, I guess, many, many years, seeing all the ones that I haven't seen before in a long time. Anyway, and let me see if I can remember anything else that comes to my mind. I remember how I had to walk to school, had to walk 2 miles to catch the school bus, and I'd be really, really cold when I'd get to school. And the teacher would put me up by the stove, the little pot-bellied stove, and to warm my feet. And we'd play, we'd go in the cloakroom to study our little cards, back in those days we had what we called flashcards, I think. We'd learn our numbers and our additions and subtraction and multiplications on that. I can remember when we were in I imagine I was in about the 6th grade. We used to school, we had 3 classes in each room, so when the teacher would be, she had to work with one class and another class and another class. So at the end of the day, we'd have a little time, to just spend, and she would, in a lot of afternoons, she would ask the teacher to go to the bathroom, which we had the little outside toilets, and we'd make it up together. She'd go out and then I would ask a little while later if I could go out. So then I'd go out there and we'd play till the bus came at the end of the day, when everything was probably done.
I was the sixth child, or the youngest one of 6 children who started in this school. I started school in 1940 and went through the 5th grade. Then we had a bus came closer from Silver Hill, so we started going over there. But one of the things I remember about this school was a sense of community and family. And for instance, when I came ill one day, we had no way to go home, during the day. So Miss Edna Sirmon, our teacher, principal, took me home with her at the end of the day. But I had to go in the cloakroom and lie down. But she always took care of us. She was real good about that. And I remember that my 1st grade, I think I was absent just about as many days as I was present. And I asked my mother later, I said, why did you let me do that? You knew I wasn't sick all that time. And she said, well, I felt sorry for you because you're so little and you had to leave home before daylight a lot of times. It was so cold. But somehow I managed to pass, so they passed me on 1 or 2, and I made it through the 5th grade here. And but anyway, I have some good memories of this little schoolhouse and our families all together. So I do remember once when I was in, I can't remember if it was the 2nd or 3rd grade, one of the boys, they had a study class, and one of the boys got in my desk, and I started crying. And the teacher tried her best to get me to tell her what was wrong, but I was too shy to tell her. I just cried and cried and cried. So finally she just took my desk and put it over all by myself, which was even more embarrassing. And but she never did get out of me what was wrong. But finally the end of the day came, which was a very long day for me that day. But it did come to an end. And I can remember us going across the fence over into the fields, and we would take radishes and eat them. And of course, Mr. Simmons knew we were doing it and allowed us to do it, but sometimes he would plant the ones that was hot right close to the fence. And sometimes we'd get those things and end up with our mouths burning.
During one of my years in school, one of our classmates come down with polio. So we was out of school for 2 weeks. The following year, we had to start, the 6th grades had to start 2 weeks early. So me and 2 of my sisters was in the grade school. So we had to walk about 2 miles to catch a bus. And we would all, of course we didn't have a cafe here, so we brought our own lunches. And so us 3, there was a bush out by the road, it was a dirt road then. So we hung our lunches in that bush. And all of a sudden here comes a bunch of cows and a bull down through the woods. And there was a tree out there that went up this way and that way and that way. So we went for safety. First off, 2 of us pushed one of them up on that part. And then we got the other one, and then we pulled the next one up there, and we got on that tree and climbed up. And sure enough, here come that bull and shook that tree, and we were so scared we was going to fall down. But he left, and so we got down and went to school. And some of the things I remember, like the teacher had to make her lessons out with some kind of special ink. And we had this tray that had that jelly stuff in it. Was it Ditto, I think? And you would put that stuff on there and it would make the ink go into that jelly. And then we'd put a piece of paper on there and rub it and that's how we printed out our lessons and special things she had for us. And I remember we had made somebody had made us some curtains. And we made some stencils and we got some enamel paint and we painted all those curtains and hung them on the tree, on the windows here. And another thing I remember is like when the Coca-Cola man would come, we all was so excited when he'd come. He'd bring us a pencil and a ruler and an eraser and things like that. And it was special to us. And whenever we had like, at lunchtime, I guess it was kind of a rest period, we'd make a circle of chairs in this room here. And the teacher would read and she'd read to us and we'd have storytelling time. We had a spelling class. It was time for our spelling. And so we had the word B-U-T in our spelling.
So the teacher said, does anyone know how to make a sentence with but, B-U-T? So this one girl, she stood up and raised her hand, and the teacher said, okay, make us a sentence with but. She says, I have a but. And the teacher just couldn't keep from cracking up.